Jones is finished. We should give an opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may, Mr. Irvin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to reintroduce you to Stevon Jones. Mr. Jones, would you stand up? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Stevon Jones, and that is my client. Thank you. What did Stevon Jones do? What did he do? We're in a joint trial, but you have to judge all of the facts of this case independently. And I want to talk to you about what Stevon Jones did. On October 5th, 2022, he was downstairs in intake doing his job. When the code blue went off, you will hear from the evidence that all available officers have to respond. He did his duty, his public duty. What did he do? He went up to the 4th floor. I'm going to show you some of these clips at the end. But to summarize, he went up to the 4th floor. He did nothing. You'll see him with his handcuffs out. He tried to approach Gershun Freeman. The gas in the air was too much. He couldn't get close to him, and he backed off. He did nothing. What did Stevon Jones do? He had a duty to follow Gershun Freeman up the escalator and get him under control, to restrain him. That was his job. He had a duty to get him under control and restrain him. He was one of 3 or 4 officers. An officer named James Perry was involved. An officer named Brandon Lawson was involved. Courtney Parham was involved. Stevon Jones was involved. He was one of 3 or 4 officers that got this man to the ground, held him, and got him in handcuffs. Mr. Funk talked to you about him being on his back, or they being on his back. What did Stevon Jones do? He controlled his legs until leg irons could be brought and put on, and immediately after the leg irons were put on, he got up and he went and gathered himself. What Mr. Funk didn't tell you is that this was on the 5th floor. The 5th floor has an opening to the gym, the outside. They had opened the doors. Mr. Stevon Jones, as soon as his job was complete, the leg irons were on, he got up and he walked to gather himself. The proof is going to show people were throwing up there. They couldn't see. They couldn't breathe. It was chaotic. He went and gathered himself. So what did Stevon Jones do? And I hope all of y'all can see this. He straddled over a man. And the reason I'm demonstrating this is because it's going to come up with several witnesses. His femurs, the big bones in his legs, were in line with the torso of his body. His weight is on the ground on both sides of Gershun Freeman. And he is below the butt. How do we know that? Gershun Freeman had finally been handcuffed. His hands are behind his back. And so Stevon Jones sat below those handcuffs, waiting for the leg irons to be brought. And as soon as he got them on, he got up and he left to gather himself. Why were they waiting on leg irons? Because Lieutenant Carlos Cleves, who was the 2nd highest ranking man in the jail that day, and the highest ranking man on the floor when all of this happened, said, we need leg irons on this man. After everything that happened, after everything that had gone down, after him fighting through 10 or 15 officers on the 4th floor and escaping to the 5th floor, Lieutenant Cleves ordered leg irons. And Stevon Jones waited, controlling his legs, not his back, not his lower back, controlling his legs until leg irons could be put on. And then he got up and he walked away. That's what Stevon Jones did. You're gonna hear a lot of proof in this case, you're gonna hear more details, but that's what Stevon Jones did. Mr. Funk talked about, did you clap? Did they shake him? Did they do CPR? What they did was call a code white. A code white is a medical emergency. They called a code white. They would have called that anyway because of all the spray and all of the chaos. But they called for medical. And they called 911. Mr. Funk just showed you 9 minutes of video where they weren't performing CPR. And Mr. Funk said you don't perform CPR on a beating heart. I agree with him 100%. They didn't perform CPR because he had a pulse. You just saw a video, the nurse checked it 6 times. The nurse didn't start CPR. He had a pulse. Stevon Jones straddled his legs and controlled them until he could fulfill his lieutenant's order, which was reasonable. And you will hear proof of that, that it was reasonable in those circumstances. Captain Green, if he's consistent with what he's already said, and he's honest on his witness stand, he will tell you that putting leg irons on this man was reasonable under the circumstances. Now, I want you to consider what Stevon Jones did in light of the state's extremely high burden. We talk about a defendant unlawfully killed Gershun Freeman and that the defendant acted knowingly. Let's talk about that first prong. Unlawfully killed Gershun Freeman. Unlawfully. And in this case, when he had a duty to exercise force, unlawfully is excessive force without legal justification. They not only have to prove to you that holding this man's legs and awaiting leg irons was somehow excessive and without legal justification, they have to rule out the reasonable possibility that it was. And killed. Killed is cause the death, okay? And in that instruction, we went over during jury selection, and everybody gets glassy-eyed, without which the death would not have occurred. I was always taught in grade school, don't use a double negative, and it's confusing. But as you listen to the proof in this case, here's what you need to be listening for. There can be concurrent causes of death, okay? And you're going to hear a lot. And if you think about concurrent causes as causes going into a sac, and death being the tearing of the sac, more than one thing can be a concurrent cause. I'll let Stevon Jones's. First, they have to prove to you that kneeling and controlling his legs somehow caused this man's death. They have to prove that to you beyond a reasonable doubt. But if they satisfy you that somehow holding his legs was a cause of death, and this sac tears, they have to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that if they took Stevon Jones' actions away, the sac wouldn't rip. I hope that puts the burden in perspective. They have to prove that if you take Stevon Jones' actions away, the sac wouldn't rip. they have to prove that straddling the legs, if he hadn't straddled those legs and waited for the leg irons, Gershun Freeman wouldn't have died. And they have to prove that he acted knowingly. Knowingly is aware. Aware of what? Reasonably certain to cause the death. They have to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this jailer doing his job, controlling a man's legs until he can fulfill his lieutenant's order and get leg irons on him, was reasonably certain to cause death. Now let's talk about how this case has unfolded and what they will present to you. 2 weeks after this happened, around late October 2022, Keith Williams was interviewed about this. Keith Williams is the man who trains use of force in the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. He's the man who trains these officers. He was asked to review the entire video, and he was asked to say if excessive force was used. He said that it wasn't. He said that they did everything they could do to control him, and he didn't see any excessive force. They didn't like that. Marco Ross is the man who performed the autopsy. This man had severe cardiovascular disease, and his death is a tragedy. But he had severe cardiovascular disease, and the entire struggle, okay, created a burden on his heart that it couldn't handle. You're going to get into the medicine. I don't want to bore you with the medicine in opening. I want to be fairly brief. But Dr. Ross will explain to you that when you're in a struggle, there is fight or flight. There's compounds called epinephrine and norepinephrine. They're called catecholamines. These catecholamines cause the arteries to vasoconstrict, to get tight. And the proof is going to show that Gershun Freeman was having a psychotic episode on the 4th floor, in his cell, before anything happened. The fight on the 4th floor. He fought through a dozen officers, maybe more. And then the ultimate restraint where they finally got control of it. He said all of these things may have contributed. He can't say one contributed more than the other, or if without one he would have lived. Marco Ross would not tell him that. Which is why we have Dr. Lee in the first place. Dr. Lee, Mr. Funk showed you his report. He had some things highlighted. I don't know if you caught it. Dr. Lee's report was signed in August of 2025, 2 years after these men were indicted, because they knew they couldn't prosecute this case with the medical examiner who did the autopsy, because he couldn't say. And they're asking you to say what the medical examiner could not say. And so they hired Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee says it's mechanical asphyxiation. And Dr. Lee, under questioning, and this doesn't matter, but we've had an opportunity to take his deposition. That's unusual in a criminal case, but we have, so we've heard from Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee will say that his opinions are based on the video. And his opinion is that he couldn't breathe, that the knee and the back and the holding him down made him unable to breathe. Now, if you were going to prosecute a murder case, if you were going to accuse 2 men who were just at work doing their jobs that day of murder, and your theory was that they were preventing this man from breathing, would you asked the people that were there? Would you, in your investigation, would you ask the people that were standing over them? Lieutenant Cleves, the highest ranking man, second highest ranking man in the jail and the highest ranking man on the floor. He's gonna come in here because we're gonna bring him in here. They didn't even talk to him. And Lieutenant Cleves will tell you he wasn't having trouble breathing. Brandon Lawson, who was one of the men that was in the takedown, he's gonna come in here because we're gonna bring him. And Brandon Lawson's gonna tell you we didn't have any concerns with him breathing. These men weren't talked to, and the state's not even gonna put it on. The state wants you to accept a video when there's eyewitnesses that they completely ignored. Let that sink in. What did happen in this case? Behind this door is a holding cell. In that holding cell, there's an elevator back there. And it goes down, and there's a tunnel over to 201 Poplar. This is 201 Poplar too, but it goes over to the jail. And the jail is not a prison. The jail does not hold people that have been convicted of crimes. You will hear from the proof that the jail is a detention center. And in that detention center are 3,000 people that the courts have determined are too dangerous to be out among us. They're the people that are held because most people should have a bail and get out because they enjoy the presumption of innocence. The 3,000 people in that jail are the people that are too dangerous to be let out in their trial. And the proof's going to show that on that day, Gershun Freeman had been brought in a few days earlier. He had severe mental health issues. We're going to hear all about that. And they assessed him to be suicidal, and they assessed him to be detoxing from opiates. Whether that's painkillers or heroin, I don't think the proof's going to show that, but detoxing from opiates. And they put him in the dangerous jail, they put him in 4J, which was the suicide area. Mr. Funk just showed you the whole video, so I'm going to skip ahead. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. You saw what happened. He lunged out at those officers and he attacked them, and it was a brawl. And it's a tight confine, and everybody was spraying. Remember, these jailers are locked in there with 3,000 dangerous people. They don't get guns. They don't get batons. They don't get tasers. They have handcuffs and pepper spray, and that's it. He broke free, and it was chaos. They sprayed a ton of spray, maybe too much. Gershun Freeman got some spray. He was spraying people too. He bit one lady. He was grabbing another. It was chaos. That's what happened. And Stevon Jones had a duty to restrain him, control and comply. You're going to see that in the regs. You're going to see it in the policies and procedures. Control and comply. You can use force until your objectives are over. You use force until you've reached your objectives. The leg irons went on, and he got off. Now, I knew that the clip would be I knew the video would be shown to you straight through during Mr. Funk's opening. So I've got clips, and here's what I want to do with you, okay? I've got a clip. I'm going to show it to you. I'm not going to narrate it. And then I'm going to show you a rule, the rules that Mr. Funk has shown you. And then I'm going to show you that clip again and tell you what I think the proof will show about that clip. Fair enough? Get out of the way here. So first of all, before we start, this is the overriding purpose of the policy. Can y'all read that? Let me read it for you. We had the TV here, and I told the judge I didn't need it so I could talk to y'all, but maybe I made a mistake there. The purpose of this policy is to establish guidelines meant to minimize risk to the general public associated with the escape of an offender and to minimize the likelihood of injury to staff, members of the public, and offenders. The SCSO overriding policy is that the staff member survives an attack where the use of force may be necessary. Use of force is contemplated. Now, employees using any type and amount of force are required to consider all types and amounts of force available and to begin with the lowest type and amount of force that is practical given the specifics of the situation. If that initial force is unsuccessful, then the employee should either continue with the initial application of force until it is successful or escalate the level of force as slowly as the situation will allow and without unnecessarily endangering themselves, other staff, or innocent bystanders. Let's watch it again. Yellow halo is Stevon Jones. He's got handcuffs out. He doesn't lay a hand on this man. He's not trying to hurt him, not trying to kick him, punch him. He's backing away. He does nothing to that man. Another clip. Okay. In situations where physical force must be used, employees are specifically prohibited from punching or kicking an inmate into submission unless there are no reasonable alternatives. The policy contemplates that sometimes punching and kicking will have to be used. When there are no reasonable alternatives. Y'all just watched what happened on the 4th floor during Mr. Funk's opening. Gershun Freeman just punched James Perry in the face. Perry punched him back. They go to the ground. Gershun Freeman's trying to get up. And Stevon Jones kicks his legs a little bit. Kicks him to get him under control because there were no reasonable alternatives. And, as an aside, I'm showing you this as it relates to his conduct and these policies. But as an aside, you're going to see the autopsy report. There were no injuries to this man's legs. If that looks violent to you, he wasn't hurt. He was kicking him to control the legs, and he stopped immediately when Gershun Freeman stopped. He didn't keep kicking him, and you'll see this a lot during the trial. But he didn't keep kicking him. He stopped. Watch it again. His legs, while the other two. Now he stops because Gershun Freeman has calmed down. He's just standing over him. He's not trying to hurt that man. He's doing his job. Okay? Next clip. Okay. The policy, and I'll read it. Employees are trained to use physical force such as control techniques, compliance hold, and/or chemical agents to achieve inmate compliance. In situations where physical force must be used, employees are to exercise extreme caution when placing their body weight on an inmate, especially when holding them in the prone position, lying face down. Officers must be aware of the possibility that the inmate may be unable to breathe properly, which may cause asphyxiation. I'm about to show you this clip again, and what you're going to see is this. As they were trying to get his arm, to get in a handcuff, Stevon Jones kneeled on him. He kneeled on him for 9 seconds. And as soon as he had his hand, he got off. For this very reason. As soon as he got his hand, he got off. And again, we're talking about his conduct in light of use of force. But even Dr. Lee, because he's already testified, Dr. Lee has already said those 9 seconds didn't cause mechanical asphyxiation. Assuming you accept Dr. Lee's opinion as true. He's already admitted those 9 seconds didn't cause mechanical asphyxiation. Let's play it again. 9 seconds, knee, and he repositions himself to over his butt. Stevon Jones is not on that man right there. He's below his butt, controlling his legs, and getting control of his arms so he can be restrained. Let's watch again. Or not again. Let's watch the next clip. Oh, this is a screenshot. And I added this because you're going to watch the whole video. You've just seen it once. Look at Stevon Jones. Look at what Stevon Jones did. Once again, femurs in line with his torso, knees on both sides. He is not putting body weight on Gershun Freeman. He is controlling his legs until leg irons can be placed. Here's the policy and procedure. Inmates may not be placed face down in a prone position while in restraints because of the possibility that they may be unable to breathe properly and asphyxiate. If an inmate must be placed face down in a prone position, again, the policy contemplates that sometimes it's necessary. Every one of those words has meaning. It didn't just say you can never do it. It's not what the policy says. The policy says, if an inmate must be placed face down in a prone position, she must be observed continuously by security staff. I want you to keep that in the back of your minds as we go forward in this case. Must be observed continuously by security staff. Must be observed continuously. Employees must exercise great caution when placing their body weight on an inmate in the face down position, and must ensure that the inmate is able to breathe effectively. Once staff has gained control and the inmate is compliant, this position must be changed as soon as possible. Mr. Jones was not putting any body weight on him. He was controlling his legs. That's it. Reasonably certain to cause death. Acting unlawfully. There it is again. Now here's the next clip. Watch carefully. That's the point where Courtney Parham gets involved. That's the first time Courtney Parham gets involved. Here's the policy. The use of force must be terminated as soon as the justification for its use is no longer present. The kicking stopped when it was no longer necessary. The knee in the back stopped. The 9-second knee in the back stopped when it was no longer necessary. The only thing that was necessary at this point was him controlling the legs until leg irons could get there. But something happened. However, force may be reapplied if resistance begins again and the conditions for the use of force are again present. So Stevon Jones is straddling the legs of Gershun Freeman. He's waiting for leg irons. And there's nothing going on. Courtney Parham, not trying to hurt that man. He's not trying to hit that man. He's standing there observing because he's in the prone position. But what happens? The proof is going to show that Gershun Freeman was still enraged, whether it was psychosis or what. He was still enraged, and he grabbed Stevon Jones' testicles and clawed him. And Stevon Jones lurched. Brandon Lawson, who the state won't call, we'll call him, runs around and grabs Stevon and tries to pull him off, and that you'll see Stevon kind of go from the straddle to whoa, I'm kind of moving everything over this way. And he's like this for the rest of the time, not even straddling him. And that, because once he got off his back, or excuse me, I'll be careful about that. Once he got off his legs and did that, Mr. Parham had to control him. Okay? But this is about what Stevon Jones did. Remember that throughout the whole trial. Stevon Jones, you judge separately from Courtney Parham. Courtney Parham, you judge separately from Stevon Jones. I want to watch it again. However, force may be reapplied if resistance begins again and the conditions for the use of these are again present. That's what had happened. That's when Courtney Parham got involved, because Mr. Jones' testicles were grabbed by Gershun Freeman. Next slide. I'm sorry. This is where Lieutenant Cleves, well, you know what? I'll narrate in a second. Let me play the clip. Okay. Excessive force. A type or amount of force that is beyond that which is reasonably necessary to control the situation and achieve the correctional objectives, or the continued use of force after it is no longer reasonably necessary. I'm going to play the clip again, and here's what the proof will show it depicts. Lieutenant Cleves, the man who ordered the leg irons, proof's going to be that they don't carry leg irons. Someone had to go down to the 4th floor control room and get them. It took a couple of minutes. Lieutenant Cleves hands Stevon Jones the leg irons. Stevon Jones gets them on, and then he gets up. And that's the last time Stevon Jones ever touched Gershun Freeman. Let's play it again. never touches Gershun Freeman again. And Mr. Funk talking about him not doing CPR and not clapping, not jostling him. You're going to hear testimony that the nurses couldn't even check a pulse when they got up there. There was so much gas in the air. People were vomiting. People were blind. They were choking. The angle of the video that Mr. Funk didn't show you is that Stevon Jones walks out to the open double doors of the gym and he's trying to gather himself. Just like I just heard today that Captain Green's going to be their first witness. Just like Captain Green tried to get a hold of this guy and handcuff him in the prone position, he was out of the fight. He had to go down to the third floor and wash himself, wash out his eyes. All of these people were out of the fight. But you know what they did? They called medical and they called 911. The last thing I'll say is that once Stevon Jones went to gather himself, Gershun Freeman's being continuously observed. No one said he couldn't breathe. You're not going to hear one witness come in here and say he couldn't breathe. You're not going to hear one witness come in here and say he was distressed. One witness that was there. Dr. Lee may say it. You're not going to hear one eyewitness say that. No one. And he was being continually observed. The state didn't even talk to him. Didn't even interview him. Hey, could he breathe? Were you watching? What were you doing? Mr. Lawson, what were you doing? You're standing over him. Was he having trouble breathing? Was he gasping? Lieutenant Cleaves, you're the second highest ranking man in the jail. What was Gershun Freeman doing? Was he having trouble breathing? Was he gasping? Nothing. You're not going to hear any of that because they didn't want to know the answer. Paul Miller, I told you Dr. Lee was hired in August of 2025. Their use of force expert, who is a law enforcement officer they work with up in Nashville, he didn't issue his report until this year. These men were charged in 2023, almost a year after it happened. This happened October 5th, 2022. Mr. Funk just read you the indictment. It was from September of 2023. Their use of force expert, this year. Because nobody else had said it was excessive. Because it wasn't excessive. Was it violent? Yes. It was violent to an extent. It was violent because an unstable man suffering a psychosis, lunged out and there was an attack. And unfortunately, some of what goes on in that jail is a tough business because these officers are charged with the duty of keeping it safe with only pepper spray and handcuffs. So, you see the video, was it violent? Yeah. Can the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what Mr. Jones did, controlling his legs until leg irons could be placed, was excessive? It was unlawful? No, they cannot carry that burden. Can they prove that Gershun Freeman even died from having weight on his back? No, they can't. The man who performed the autopsy won't tell you that. He won't give you cause of death. That's why Dr. Lee's here to begin with. When you go back and decide your case, Judge Kraft hit on it yesterday, remember, this criminal trial is not about what you believe. It's not about what conclusions you reach as to what could have happened, what may have happened, what is within the realm of possibility. See, Stevon Jones is on trial for murder. But a criminal trial is about the state being on trial. Has the state carried their burden of proof? Have they proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt that it was unlawful and that Stevon Jones caused the death? And what that means is have they removed reasonable possibility that it was lawful? Have they removed the reasonable possibility that he died of something else? Have they removed the reasonable possibility that no matter what Stevon Jones did, this man would have lived? They cannot do that. Mr. Jones is not guilty of this crime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we hear our last opening statement, your lunch is here. We're going to take a break for lunch. Don't discuss the case with yourselves or anybody else, and we'll be back with y'all at 2 o'clock. Thank you. If you need a little extra time, we won't start until y'all all ready. I hope everybody got enough for lunch. We're gonna do better as the trial progresses. You may give your opening statement. Steve.
Thank you, Rick. Courtney Parham worked at the Shelby County 201 jail back in October of 2022 as a deputy jailer. He actually had gotten some advanced training and certifications to qualify for a team called the DRT. What the DRT does is they're a unit that roves the jail, and they're kind of extra security. Since COVID, 201 has struggled with some staffing issues. And so, even on October the 5th, there were not as many officers as there should be. And so, a code blue, what that means to the officers in that jail when they hear that is that either an inmate has gotten into an altercation with another inmate, or an inmate and a guard have gotten into an altercation. So what that means when they hear code blue, I believe the evidence will show you that equals danger. That is all hands on deck. Anyone who can come help. And when you watch that video, that's what you see. The jail has its issues, absolutely. And there are some things that we all know that the evidence will show you. But I want to talk to you first about why we say psychosis was at play here. You could please hit play. The evidence will show that there was a video in the cell for Mr. Gershun Freeman, starting at 10:38. Do you need help? While she's getting that ready, I'll kind of set the scene. Starting at 10:38 and going until 16:41. What this video shows is the entire time, that portion of time that Mr. Freeman was in custody. There is a block of time, and then there is another video that shows the period of time from when Mr. Freeman was put in 4J until I think 800 hours. So we're missing a block of time in there, video evidence-wise. This is the video from his cell. He was in 4J. What that means is that he was in a special hallway that only has 5 cells in it. For those cells, the people who are in them are under a stricter watch for various reasons, one of which can be that they are suicidal. So those people require greater attention. They only have 5 people in that hallway, and they are only allowed out of their cells one at a time, and they are allowed to get out and shower and things like that. But otherwise, they are relatively confined to their cells because they could pose a risk of danger to themselves or to others. That is also why they are naked. The jail takes the clothes away because clothes can be used as a means by which to harm yourself. And so they're given blankets, things like that, but their clothes are taken away. And it's for their protection. So this is leading up to the officers coming down the hallway with the food that you saw the doors rolling for. If you could please hit play. Keep it rolling. You will see a white patch on the back of Mr. Freeman. That is from an unrelated incident where he had been stabbed prior to coming into custody. This is him covering the video camera. He had actually already gotten in trouble for this. Sergeant Cam Reporter, Katie, if you'll pause it, had to come talk to him because the people who surveilled the jail had said, hey, this guy keeps on covering up his camera, go talk to him, he has to stop doing that. And Cam Reporter will tell you that when she went and spoke with Mr. Freeman, he was saying, "I'm gonna kick their asses," and jumping up and down on his bed. You can see already, he's almost shiny looking with sweat. This is before he has left the cell. He does continually go to that area. Crime scene photos will show there was nothing in that area. This is important because Dr. Ross's medical opinion and Dr. Oliver, who you'll hear about in a minute, talk about his level of physicality being what killed him. This is him getting ready to charge out of the cell at the two officers who were feeding all of the inmates. That is where the state's video that the state showed in in their opening statement, that has their commentary that the judge had talked to you about. That's where this picks up, is right in this area. So I'm going to go to that video because these are the officers that they're giving the individuals in their cells, they're giving them their food. That's what those white styrofoam containers are. They're just handing out their food, to each of the individual cells. This one right here is the cell in which Mr. Freeman is. You can see him. And as soon as that door opens, charges out and immediately starts attacking officers. And they respond. What happens in this 4th floor hallway, that code blue is called, officers respond to try to help the other officers. This orange stuff that you see on the ground, that is spray, OC spray, pepper spray. That is the only weapon, pause it please, that these officers really have available to them are those handcuffs and that OC spray. You will see one of the women officers, she has her spray, her can spray, that she's hitting with it. She's hitting with it, the proof will show, because Mr. Freeman is biting all up and down her legs. And she actually had to go to the hospital after this because of that. The altercation continues in this hallway where Mr. Freeman is managing to get through all of these officers. At this point, he is covered in that OC spray, which is an oil-based spray. He is extremely slippery at this point, as you can see the officers slipping and sliding along the floor. Also, you will watch in this video, you will see the officers throughout this whole thing coughing and gagging and seeking. You will see them all going to try to get away from this spray because it is so debilitating. If you watch the screen here, you will actually see at one point a burst of spray that I believe the proof will show you comes from Mr. Freeman stealing the OC spray can from one of the other officers and spraying it at the officers. Now this, please, is Mr. Courtney Parham with the green circle around his head. That circle is meant to help you identify people because obviously this is a very chaotic situation. Mr. Parham has gone as part of that DRT unit. He's responding to this. He's coming in to get some of these officers who are choking and debilitated from the spray to take him to medical. If you'll watch, in a moment, you'll see Mr. Parham coming here. You see these other officers trying to help the officers who have been so contaminated by this spray that they need that help to get it out of their eyes, off of their skin. There again is Mr. Parham, taking that officer to that medical bay. The state has put a green circle around Mr. Parham every time he appears on the screen. So I would note for you, that green circle never showed up in that 4th floor hallway where all of that mayhem was going on. Despite the fact, if you'll pause please, despite the fact that the officers are choking and completely disabled by this spray, Mr. Freeman is not. I believe every officer who was here this day is going to get up here and tell you about how terrible it was to breathe that in, and how they have never in their careers experienced a person that the spray didn't stop, and how terrifying that was for all of them. Right here, pause please. If you remember, in the 4th floor hallway, they had gotten Mr. Freeman down. And he got up and made it here. And here, they got him down. And they're attempting to cuff him here, to get him subdued. He is in a prone position here, with the captain right beside him. I believe the captain's the one who threw him down on the ground into the prone position in the first place. But he gets away again. They did not place any sort of weight or anything on his back. And he got away. And he goes into a different part of the jail. At this point, he's holding on to the leg of an officer as the officer is desperately trying to get him off of him. The officers are trying to come in and help to get Mr. Freeman off of that officer. The camera angle is about to change. If you watch right down in this area, you will see an officer come forward with Mr. Freeman holding onto his legs. At that point, you will see Mr. Parham come in, issue a spray of OC spray, and I believe 3 short kicks to Mr. Freeman's arm to try to get him off of that officer. There's Mr. Parham. And again, you see all of these officers reacting to that spray. There is the officer struggling to get away from Mr. Freeman. 1 short spray. Kick, 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 trying to get him off, and then immediately backs up. Again, when Mr. Freeman is left alone, he gets up and goes further. At this point in time, when you're able to see different angles, you'll see a bunch of officers rushing off to that medical bay again to clear out their eyes, while Mr. Freeman walked to the escalators to then proceed up to the 5th floor of the jail, a completely separate floor from where he was housed. You can see all of these officers having physical reactions to the spray that's still just in the air. There's Mr. Freeman. Please pause. I would have you note, Mr. Freeman at this point in time is already extremely unsteady on his feet. But I'm going to be going into the medical testimony a little bit after we finish watching the video, but that's important to remember. Despite already being unsteady on his feet, He is still confrontational with officers, and as soon as he gets up to the 5th floor, he immediately engages with Perry, right there. Punches him, Perry punches back, gets taken to the ground. Again, Mr. Parham is not here, was not any part of any of this. He is struggling with them while they are trying to get him into handcuffs and under control. Again, he is covered in OC spray that is extremely slippery. There is Mr. Parham. He has come to assist the officers if they need him. If you'll notice, he tries to offer assistance, they don't need it, he backs off and just stands by. Pause, please. I would note, at this point in time, the state's timer says that someone has been on his back for 45 seconds. As Mr. Irvin demonstrated to you, this was the position taken. Straight, not placing weight on the individual. But that's when that timer starts. So please take that into consideration as you're listening to the evidence and watching these videos. When do you think though any weight was actually applied on the back? Mr. Jones at this point is the only officer keeping Mr. Freeman on the ground. At this point in time, Mr. Jones is the only officer who needs to be, because he's calmed down some. He's finally getting into compliance, until he's not. Until he then decides to attack Mr. Stevon Jones by grabbing his testicles. And you can't see it there. Right there is when that happens. That is when Mr. Jones jumps up, and Mr. Parham then takes his knee, and I'm doing the opposite knees, it would be his right knee, as you can see, and places it down, and places his other leg out to support. He's not putting both legs on Mr. Freeman. And I believe the proof is going to show you that he was positioned in such a way that he could control the amount of body weight that he was placing on Mr. Freeman's back. Additionally, I believe the proof will show you that Mr. Parham could feel whether or not Mr. Freeman was still breathing, so that he would know to adjust. As you watch the video, you will see Mr. Parham adjust frequently. You can tell that all of his weight is not placed on the back. There's 3 officers here, by the way. Lawson is the one who's right up here. If you will notice, the whole time Mr. Parham does have his knee on Mr. Freeman's back, he does not have it anywhere up by his neck, and he is consistently watching Mr. Freeman the whole time. You will also see Mr. Jones throughout this process still continuing to gag and choke, because even though the spray was utilized on the 4th floor, because it was on Mr. Freeman, it contaminated the 5th floor as well. So even on the 5th floor, everyone is suffering from the attack or the effects of this spray. They are waiting for the leg irons at this point. They've gotten them. Mr. Jones gets up. At this point in time, Mr. Jones is off, and now Mr. Parham is the only person keeping Mr. Freeman down. after every single time that Mr. Freeman had been left without anything physically holding him down, he had gotten up and gotten away. Mr. Parham has his knee on his back and he is waiting because he has been told to wait until the jackets get there. At this point, Mr. Freeman is naked and covered in the spray. There are no clothes for Mr. Parham to hold on to. There's nothing that is not slippery for him to get any sort of traction on. So they go and they get these jackets to put on top of him so they have something not only to cover him, but as a means by which to be able to hold on to it. They are all standing and monitoring him constantly. Checking his cuffs right here. Another officer coming to check. Two more officers who have come. There's Mr. Jones. With the further back angle, you can see more people in the back of the hallway that leads towards that outside rec area that Mr. Irvin was telling you about. Again, they're all constantly monitoring him. These officers have a duty to intervene if they see something that they believe is an excessive force situation, where if they believed that Mr. Freeman at this point was unresponsive or unconscious, they would all have a duty to stop what was happening. Mr. Parham would have a duty to stand up. As soon as the jackets got there, Mr. Parham got up and went outside to clear out his eyes and to breathe some air that was not contaminated with OC spray. You will see in just a moment, there will be a chair looking things. Rectangular, orangish colored. That is a chair that is used and called for anytime use of force has been utilized or spray has been utilized to take someone to medical. It gets up there because it has already been called for. There it is. That's what they would use to take Mr. Freeman to medical. They have also called for nurses at this point to respond. Mr. Freeman, at some point, had gotten a cut on the back of his head and he was bleeding, a laceration on the back of his head. And they had called for medical staff to come check on that. They put Mr. Freeman in the recovery position. Numerous officers around him. I would note none of these 5, 6, 7 numerous officers, none of them started CPR. Because I believe the proof will show to you at this point, even when medical staff arrived, Mr. Freeman's eyes were still flickering, he was still breathing, and he still had a pulse. Medical staff arrives. The nurse, who attempts at first to go in and check his pulse, but is so overwhelmed by the spray that she has to step back for a second before she then goes back to check his pulse. Second nurse comes in, checks his pulse. I believe the proof will show you that they did not immediately begin CPR, because when they checked for a pulse, as nurses, there was a pulse, which they would be required to check for. And if this person was not responsive and was not alive, they would be required to then start that intervention. So I take issue with this time until attempt to revive, because I believe that the evidence will show you that at this point revival was not necessary. And please do not construe that as me saying that Mr. Freeman was not in distress. He was obviously in distress. This was a very traumatic and chaotic situation that had just happened. He did just go through an altercation with officers. We later found out he has a terrible, terrible heart disease. I will talk to you all about it in a minute. They bring oxygen. They don't administer the oxygen. These are all things that medical professionals would be required to do if the circumstances necessitated it. The point at which Mr. Freeman's pulse stopped, that is when CPR started. 911 had been called. They were on the way. The same day that this happened, TBI was brought in to investigate. TBI was brought in to investigate because they are supposed to be the neutral investigating body in any sort of possibly officer involved or in custody situation. They're supposed to be the ones who have that objectivity to come in and investigate this, to collect all of the evidence to see whether or not something should be prosecuted. The TBI did come in here. The lead investigator, Special Agent Chuck Baker, came in along with Ellison and Wages, who he was training, and he began the process of collecting evidence. They collected crime scene photos, they collected the 911 call, they collected all of these surveillance videos that you're seeing. They interviewed witnesses, they reviewed witness statements. Among those, they interviewed a man named Keith Williams. He was for Shelby County, their use of force expert. TBI had Shelby County's use of force expert review this footage. And he said the force that was used was necessary under the circumstances. He also interviewed and spoke with Dr. Marco Ross, who is the chief, at the time was the chief medical examiner for Shelby County. Mr. Funk showed you the autopsy findings that said it was exacerbation of arteriosclerotic coronary artery disease due to altercation and subdual. That's what the autopsy says. When the TBI, along with prosecutors, interviewed Mr. Ross, he said specifically that it was not the altercation or the subdual that killed Mr. Freeman. It was the physical tax on his heart in engaging in that. Dr. Ross told them that it would involve considerable speculation to say that either what happened on the 4th floor or what happened on the 5th floor was a greater cause of Mr. Freeman's death. He also absolutely refused to say that but for the subdual, Mr. Freeman would have died. It was Dr. Ross's opinion that Mr. Freeman could have died of natural causes that same day without any of this ever having happened. That was back closer in time to when this happened. TBI collected all of that information. When the TBI was done collecting their information, they then gave it all to the prosecutors. At some point, the prosecutors began interviewing witnesses on their own without the TBI, including Commander Green, who I think it was June of 2023, June 8th of 2023, hired an attorney and entered into an immunity agreement with the state to come and give a statement. An immunity agreement means I'm going to come talk to you as long as you don't charge me. The only time we saw Commander Green in that video was when Mr. Freeman was rushing at him and he threw him down on the ground. The TBI was not a part of that interview. The TBI was actually never provided that interview despite asking for it. In September of 2023, September 19th, almost a year after this happened, these gentlemen were indicted. The TBI was not ever told that indictment was happening, which is highly unusual. After the indictment, in 2023, as the prosecution has unfolded, Mr. Irvin kind of discussed with you about how the case unfolded. In August of 2025, Dr. Lee rendered an opinion saying that this was mechanical asphyxia. The very thing that Dr. Ross would not say. Dr. Lee has testified and has said nothing in the autopsy supports his opinion. Nothing. He believes it was mechanical asphyxia based on the video. He cannot tell you how much weight is required to result in mechanical asphyxia. He cannot tell you how much weight was on Mr. Freeman's back. What he will tell you is, I watched the video, and it is my opinion that he died of mechanical asphyxia. In 2026, the state, Dr. Lee is the Davidson County Medical Examiner, Nashville, but he also has his own consulting firm. In this case, he is acting not as the medical examiner for Davidson County. He was acting in his consulting position. He is a hired expert for the state. Marco Ross was acting within his duties as the medical examiner for Shelby County. They also contacted Paul Miller, who is a member of the police department in Nashville. And he is their use of force expert, saying that excessive force was used here. You will also hear contrary expert proof. We will present an expert, 3 experts. The first is Dr. Megan Avery. Dr. Megan Avery is a forensic psychologist, and she will talk to you about evidence of psychosis and aggression that she sees in the video in Mr. Freeman. We have Derek Pleasance, who is a use of force expert, and he has reviewed this video, and he will tell you what happens sometimes in law enforcement is not pretty, but sometimes it is necessary. And that the force that was used here was necessary. We also have Dr. Oliver, Dr. William Oliver. Dr. Oliver studies this particular area of medicine extensively regarding mechanical asphyxia. This is an area of controversy among medical examiners because back in 1988, there was a theory that people who are placed in a prone position and have weight on them die. But that eventually got debunked. And the person who authored that study is the one who debunked himself. Dr. Oliver will talk to you about the studies that exist that show a prone position plus weight does not result in mechanical asphyxia on its own until you get all the way up into hundreds of pounds. Hundreds of pounds. He will discuss all of that with you, and he will talk to you about his review of the autopsy and all of the autopsy photographs and his findings that the cause of death here was severe arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Same as Dr. Ross. These men did not go to work that day to hurt anyone. What happened at the end of all of this was shocking to them. Mr. Parham did not know that Mr. Freeman would die from this. Because when you looked at Mr. Freeman, you couldn't see what was inside of him. You couldn't see how severe his heart condition was. Nothing on the outside showed that. What did show on the outside was the aggressive behavior and potential psychosis and the danger that he was causing not only to other people, but to himself. These men were not trying to hurt Gershun Freeman. They were just trying to get him to stop attacking other officers and running around in the jail the way he wasn't allowed to be doing. Nothing that they did was intended to or should have caused his death, because he died of a cardiac arrest. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Let's take a call with